What if the habit everyone praises as generosity is quietly destroying the very strength generosity requires? What if endless sacrifice is not always proof of a noble heart, but sometimes evidence that fear has learned to wear the clothing of virtue? There is a profound difference between willing service and compulsive availability. Willing service says, I choose to give because this responsibility is mine, this person matters, and this act agrees with what I value. Compulsive availability gives for another reason. It fears rejection. It obeys guilt. It hungers for approval. It says yes, not because yes is right, but because no feels dangerous. The outward act may look identical. The inward source is not. You know the cycle. A request arrives, and before judgment can speak, agreement has escaped your mouth. You rearrange your plans, neglect your own work, and spend strength you did not truly have. Then comes private exhaustion. Resentment follows, carefully concealed beneath a helpful face. The quality of your help declines because depleted attention cannot offer its best. You feel ashamed of the resentment, guilty about the weakness, and eager to prove your goodness again. So when the next request comes, you agree even faster. That is not freedom. It is a pattern feeding upon itself. Consider the dependable person who answers every call, absorbs every emergency, and carries every burden placed within reach. Others praise this person. Others rely upon this person. Yet beneath that costly halo, something essential is disappearing. Personal plans remain unfinished. Health becomes negotiable. Quiet reflection feels forbidden. The voice of inner direction grows faint beneath the noise of constant demand. Soon, this person can hear what everyone else needs, but can no longer hear what their own life requires. Do not mistake this recognition for condemnation. Your generous intention may be sincere even when your method has become destructive. The problem is not that you care. The problem is that care without choice becomes compulsion, and compulsion eventually corrupts the gift. Help offered with hidden bitterness is not strengthened by your suffering. Responsibility performed by a person collapsing inwardly is not made more honorable by the collapse. Ask the question you may have avoided. When does service become self-betrayal? Watch the evidence. If giving repeatedly leaves you resentful, depleted, directionless, and less capable of fulfilling what truly belongs to you, then sacrifice may have displaced service. Useful service requires a self, strong enough, clear enough, and sufficiently renewed to serve by choice. We will not answer this by offering vague permission to take care of yourself. We will establish standards for time, health, direction, and relationships. We will identify legitimate duties, expose demands that survive only through habit, and learn when refusal protects service rather than evades it. But first, the moral confusion must end. You must know precisely where selfish taking stops and disciplined renewal begins. Here is the line. Selfish taking advances your comfort or appetite by transferring an avoidable cost to another person, or by neglecting a responsibility you have truly accepted. Disciplined renewal protects the strength, clarity, health, and direction required to honor responsibility over time. The difference is not indulgence versus suffering. It is purpose versus disregard. Selfishness consumes without concern for what its consumption imposes. Renewal restores with an honest account of what that restoration makes possible. Selfishness abandons duty when duty becomes inconvenient. Renewal prepares the person who must carry it. One says, let others pay so I may remain comfortable. The other says, I will maintain myself so I can meet what is genuinely mine. Do not judge the choice by its appearance alone. A yes may sound generous while passing tomorrow's exhaustion, irritability, and broken promises to those who depend upon you. A no may sound severe while preserving the attention needed for an essential obligation. Rest may be escape, or it may be repair. Work may be devotion, or it may be avoidance. The visible act does not deliver the moral verdict. Ask instead, what does this choice protect? What cost does it create, and who must carry that cost? What will it enable me to honor afterward? These questions expose both deception and unnecessary guilt. If you refuse a genuine duty merely to protect convenience, call the act what it is, evasion. If you accept every demand and thereby weaken your ability to fulfill a deeper responsibility, do not call that generosity merely because you said yes. Goodness is not measured by the speed of your surrender. It is measured by the integrity of what your decision preserves and produces. There is demonstrated interest in this distinction. A 28 to 34 video framing self-prioritization against selfish taking received 43,313 views within 3 weeks. Those views do not prove the principle universal, nor do they settle its moral truth. They show only that many people are drawn to language capable of separating responsible renewal from careless self-interest. The confusion is real enough to command attention. It must now command precision. Reject the two extremes. Self-abandonment is not virtue, because a person who continually erases personal needs eventually damages the responsibilities entrusted to that life. Callous self-absorption is not freedom, because it builds private comfort upon neglected promises and displaced burdens. You are not required to choose between disappearing for others and becoming indifferent to them. Choose disciplined stewardship. Put yourself first in the order of maintenance, not first in the order of human worth. Protect your capacity, not your every preference. Restore yourself, not so that responsibility can be escaped, but so that it can be met without concealed resentment, chronic depletion, or moral confusion. This is the governing test we will carry forward. Selfishness takes strength away from responsibility. Disciplined renewal builds the strength by which responsibility is honored. Once you understand that distinction, renewal is no longer a private luxury. It becomes a duty of stewardship. What then is renewal meant to preserve? Not comfort for its own sake, not freedom from every strain. It preserves capacity, the combined condition of your energy, attention, health, emotional steadiness, and direction. These are not separate luxuries. Together they form the human means by which every promise is kept, every burden is carried, and every useful contribution is made. Capacity is finite, treated accordingly. A well may be drawn from for a worthy purpose. It may supply a household, refresh a traveler, or sustain necessary work, but if it is continually emptied and never replenished, sincerity cannot fill the bucket. Good intentions cannot produce water from an exhausted source. The need may remain legitimate. The desire to answer it may remain noble, yet the source still requires restoration. So it is with you. When capacity is neglected, patience tends to narrow. Judgment becomes hurried. Consistency weakens. Attention fragments. The contribution may continue, but its quality begins to decline. You may still appear available while becoming less present, still perform the task while losing the steadiness that once made the task valuable. This is not an argument against sacrifice. Some duties are costly. Some seasons demand unusual effort. Some responsibilities must be met even when you feel unprepared. But extraordinary expenditure cannot become a permanent method without consequences. A demanding season calls for deliberate recovery. A heavy responsibility calls for stronger maintenance. The greater the rightful demand, the more seriously you must care for the capacity that meets it. The disciplined steward, therefore, asks two questions, not one. Who needs my help? Is necessary, but it is incomplete. The second question is, what condition must I remain in to help well? That question does not reduce compassion. It gives compassion endurance. It does not place the giver above the duty. It prepares the giver for the duty. Rest, then, is not automatically retreat. Preparation is not delay. Protected attention is not time stolen from honorable work. When chosen deliberately and tied to a worthy purpose, each is maintenance in the service of contribution. Rest restores usable strength. Preparation reduces careless action. Protected attention allows important work to receive more than the fragments left by lesser demands. But be exact. Renewal must answer to purpose. If rest repeatedly replaces responsibility, it has become avoidance. If preparation never becomes action, it has become concealment. If protected attention serves only appetite, it has lost its moral claim. Maintenance is justified by what it equips you to honor. Adopt the standard, restore what duty consumes, protect what purpose requires, and refuse what destroys both. You are accountable not only for what leaves your hands, but for the condition of the person from whom the giving must come. That is sober responsibility. Now examine your life candidly. Where is your finite capacity being spent without consent, without priority, and without renewal? Before stronger boundaries can be built, those hidden expenditures must be brought into the light. Begin where your days are actually spent. Inventory the recurring commitments that claim your strength: work, family, caregiving, communication, errands, emotional labor, and the expectation that you will remain available whenever someone reaches for you. Do not record only formal promises. Record what happens because it always happens. What you do because you have always done it, and what others assume because you have never interrupted the pattern. Repetition is not consent. Take each commitment and place it under 4 questions. Did I choose it? Is it truly mine? What does it cost? What useful purpose does it serve? Answer plainly. A commitment may be costly and still belong to you. Another may be easy and still have no rightful claim. Cost alone does not condemn a duty, and familiarity does not establish one. The test is ownership joined to purpose. Now look for the agreements that were never spoken. Must you answer immediately? Must you prevent every disappointment? Must you solve problems before anyone asks? Must another person's urgency become your command? These rules often enter life without announcement. You comply once to be kind, again to avoid friction, and eventually because refusal now feels like a violation. Habit acquires the authority of law. But what you never consciously agreed to should not govern you merely because it has been repeated. Pay attention to resentment. Do not enthrone it as judge, but do not silence it as shameful. Resentment is information. It may reveal an expectation no one has named, a limit you have never expressed, or a commitment maintained long after consent disappeared. It may also expose your own failure to communicate honestly. Listen to the signal, then investigate the claim. Resentment can point toward a boundary, but it cannot decide whether the underlying responsibility is real. Sort what you find into 4 groups. An essential duty is genuinely yours. A promise accepted. A dependent entrusted to you. A consequence you are responsible to meet. Chosen service is freely given because it expresses your values and contributes to something worthy. Negotiable support has value, but its timing, frequency, method, or extent can be changed. An inherited burden persists mainly because custom, family pattern, workplace culture, or old fear assigned it to you before you examined it. Do not use these categories to excuse convenience. Use them to recover accuracy. The careless person labels every burden negotiable. The compulsive giver labels every request essential. Discipline does neither. It honors what is truly owed, chooses service without coercion, reshapes what can be adjusted, and questions what was inherited without rightful authority. Complete the audit with 3 decisions. Select one inherited burden you will question. Select one negotiable demand you will reshape. Select one essential duty you will support with better renewal. Write them down. Keep them visible. They are no longer a cloud of exhaustion. They are distinct claims awaiting deliberate action. Boundaries begin when unconscious sacrifice becomes conscious choice. You now have a map of what must be honored, renegotiated, or released. The next task is to guard the first gate through which every new claim attempts to enter, your time and attention. Every yes spends a portion of your life. It spends minutes that cannot be recovered, attention that cannot be placed in 2 locations at once, and strength already claimed by responsibilities you have accepted. Such an expenditure deserves more than reflex. It deserves more than embarrassment, pressure, or the fear of appearing unkind. Therefore, establish a rule. No new promise without a deliberate pause. Receive the request. Resist the instant answer. Examine what is already yours to carry. Then respond at a time you have chosen. You may say, "Let me review my commitments and answer you tomorrow." That sentence is neither rejection nor delay for its own sake. It is the doorway through which choice re-enters a life ruled by automatic agreement. During that pause, apply 4 questions. Is this mine to do? Does it serve a responsibility or purpose I have consciously chosen? What must be displaced if I accept? Can I contribute in a smaller, clearer, or more sustainable way? Do not hurry past the 3rd question. Every acceptance displaces something, even when the displaced thing is invisible. It may be sleep, preparation, focused work, recovery, or attention owed to an essential duty. A crowded calendar hides these exchanges. Honest judgment reveals them. Now bring forward the 3 decisions from your audit. The inherited burden may require a clean refusal. I will no longer take responsibility for that. The negotiable demand may require a narrower offer. I can help for 1 hour, but I cannot manage the entire task. The essential duty may deserve a firm acceptance with explicit terms. Yes, I will do this, and I will complete it by Friday. Accuracy gives each claim its proper answer. Your response is not confined to yes or no. Decline, defer, limit the scope, propose an alternative, accept with clear terms. The disciplined person does not surrender the whole field merely because some contribution is worthwhile. But understand the nature of a boundary. A boundary is not a punishment disguised as self-respect. It does not say, "You must not be disappointed." It says, "This is what I will do. This is what I will protect. This is what I will permit." Another person may dislike your decision. Their feeling deserves humane recognition, but it does not possess governing authority over your time. Clarity is not cruelty. Vagueness is not kindness. Now protect 1 recurring block each week for renewal or priority work. Name it. Schedule it. Defend it as you would an accepted commitment, because it is one. Do not wait to see what remains after every appetite and interruption has been satisfied. Leftover time rarely builds a directed life. This appointment is proof that your stated priorities can command actual hours. Keep it unless a genuine duty requires otherwise. If such a duty interrupts it, deliberately reschedule it. A standard displaced by necessity must not be abandoned by drift. Guard your time. Direct your attention. Make promises after judgment, for the calendar records what your mouth may deny. What repeatedly receives your hours is what you are truly serving. Yet time alone cannot carry a promise. The person living inside that protected calendar requires maintenance too. Your next responsibility is to the body through which every duty must be performed. What kind of responsibility honors every demand from the outside while repeatedly breaking every promise made to the body within? You keep the appointment, answer the message, finish the task, and carry the burden. Yet rest is postponed, nourishment becomes accidental, movement disappears, recovery is treated as weakness, and necessary medical attention is delayed until some quieter season that never arrives. This is not discipline. It is a double standard applied against your own capacity. The body is the means through which care becomes action, leadership becomes presence, labor becomes contribution, and love becomes something another person can actually receive. It is not a machine guaranteed to remain well if properly managed. Discipline cannot promise freedom from illness, injury, limitation, or fatigue. But uncertainty does not excuse neglect. You cannot control every condition. You can govern whether basic maintenance receives a rightful place in your plan. You cannot honor the work of your life while treating the worker as disposable. Now preserve the distinction between renewal and indulgence. Renewal restores you for a return to chosen action. It has purpose, proportion, and an end. Avoidance uses comfort to escape what must eventually be faced. Renewal says, "I will recover so I may re-engage with steadiness." Avoidance says, "I will remain here so the difficult thing cannot reach me." One repairs participation. The other indefinitely postpones it. Ask yourself directly, what physical signal do I bargain away most often? Is it fatigue, hunger, pain, tension, or the need to recover? and what demand usually defeats it? Name both. The ignored signal and the competing claim must become visible before the pattern can be changed. Otherwise, urgency will continue winning arguments that judgment never had the opportunity to hear. Do not answer with an idealized reinvention. Establish a modest floor. Protect a workable opportunity for sleep. Provide regular nourishment. Include movement appropriate to your circumstances. Obtain necessary care. Build intervals of recovery into demanding periods. Your standard must be realistic enough to practice, specific enough to defend, and flexible enough to respect your actual condition. A standard that exists only on perfect days is not yet a standard. Choose that floor now. Write the minimum forms of maintenance you will no longer trade away casually. If genuine duty interrupts them, respond without shame and restore them deliberately. If an inherited burden or negotiable demand repeatedly consumes them, bring that claim back under examination. If an essential duty requires greater effort, support it with greater recovery. The purpose is not to worship the body. The purpose is to stop excluding it from the responsibilities it must carry. Seek no fantasy of bodily perfection. Seek more honest, stable participation in what matters. Maintain yourself so that your service is less resentful, your presence less fragmented, and your accepted duties less dependent upon emergency strength. Protect the worker. Restore the capacity. Return to the work. But return to what work? Once time and physical strength have been guarded, they require destination. Renewal without direction can become retreat. Your next task is to decide what deserves the strength you have preserved. What happens to strength that has been restored but not assigned? It does not remain patiently available. The next urgent voice will claim it. The next unexamined demand will spend it. The next familiar expectation will enter the open space and call itself necessary. Capacity without direction is easily captured. You must therefore decide what your protected time and maintained health are for. Begin with 3 questions. What responsibilities do I genuinely accept? What contribution do I most want to make? What condition must I preserve in order to sustain both? Do not answer with whatever sounds impressive. Name what is true. Name the people, work, promises, and forms of service that deserve your steady presence. Then name the rest, health, attention, and preparation required to offer that presence well. You do not need an inflated mission for your entire life. You need direction for this season. What must be built now? What must be protected? What must be repaired? What must be completed? A season may call for stabilizing a household, finishing necessary work, restoring health, deepening a chosen contribution, or faithfully carrying an accepted responsibility. Direction becomes useful when it is bounded enough to govern today. Reduce your answer to one sentence. In this season, I am directing my strength toward, while maintaining the conditions that allow me to do it faithfully. Write it privately. Make it specific. Let it tell you what receives your first attention and what must wait. Then establish the order. Essential responsibilities come first because they are truly yours. Chosen contribution comes next because a directed life must create, repair, support, or complete something worthy. Renewal follows as the maintenance that sustains both. Optional demands receive what remains, not what must be taken from the first 3. This hierarchy does not make every decision effortless. It makes the decision honest. Now reconsider the claims uncovered in your audit. The essential duty you selected should receive stronger support. The negotiable demand should be narrowed until it no longer damages the direction you have chosen. The inherited burden should be tested without reverence for repetition. Does this claim serve an accepted responsibility? Does it advance the contribution named for this season? Does it support the condition required to continue? Or does it survive merely because no one has challenged its place? Choose one demand and place it beside your sentence. If accepting it repeatedly weakens what you have declared important, the boundary is no longer an empty refusal. It is protection with a purpose. You are not merely saying no to another task. You are saying yes to the responsibility already accepted, the work deliberately chosen, the health required to continue, and the person you are becoming through faithful action. A boundary becomes easier to hold when you know what stands behind it. But a direction written in solitude has not yet faced another person's disappointment. Soon the old guilt will speak. Pressure may rise. Your firmness may be called selfishness. The next test is whether you can protect what matters without hardening your heart. What if the discomfort you feel after setting a limit is not proof that the limit is wrong? What if it feels wrong because automatic compliance once felt familiar and deliberate choice is still new? Do not obey discomfort before you examine it. When guilt appears, ask 3 questions. Have I violated an actual duty? Have I caused harm that I can reasonably repair? Or am I feeling the weight of another person's disappointment because I did not provide what they expected? These questions return conscience to its rightful task. Conscience should correct wrongdoing. It should not be recruited to enforce every preference, protest, or inherited expectation. Another person's disappointment is real. It is not always your command. The chronic rescuer hears protest and immediately reopens the decision. A sigh becomes an accusation. An accusation becomes a verdict. Soon the limit is withdrawn. The old arrangement is restored, and resentment begins gathering beneath the agreement. The disciplined steward behaves differently. This person listens without contempt, checks the facts without panic, and asks whether truth requires correction. If it does, correction follows. If it does not, the boundary remains. That is firmness governed by conscience. State the limit briefly. I understand that this is disappointing, but I cannot take that on. Or I am able to help in this way, but not in the way you requested. Then stop building an endless defense. Excessive explanation invites every reason to become a point of negotiation. A pressure will question your schedule, your priorities, your needs, and even your character. You need not enter that courtroom. Repeat the decision calmly. Do not intensify because another person intensifies. Do not punish. Do not retreat. A steady answer carries more authority than an angry speech. But firmness must remain open to truth. Review the boundary when new facts appear. Did you neglect a responsibility that genuinely belongs to you? Did your refusal impose an unfair cost that you had already agreed to carry? Did you contradict a promise freely made? If so, revise the limit. Repair what can be repaired, and accept accountability without self-condemnation. A responsible boundary is not rigid. It is correctable. Yet correction is not capitulation. You may recognize another person's feeling without reversing your decision. You may say, I understand why you hoped I would do this. You may offer assistance within your capacity, suggest a truthful alternative, or name when you can reconsider. Empathy does not require surrender. Compassion can hear disappointment without making disappointment the ruler of your life. This is how relationships receive the governing test. Honor genuine duties. Repair genuine harm. Keep freely made commitments. And refuse the belief that constant access is the price of love. Each examined boundary you uphold becomes evidence of a new identity. You can care without rescuing. You can remain accountable without becoming governable by guilt. You can be kind without being continuously available. Now the boundary has survived pressure. The final task is to make this courage repeatable to gather renewal, direction, accountability, and service into a daily practice that returns your strength to what is truly yours to do. The purpose was never to make you proud of giving less. It was to make your giving honest again. Service that steadily poisons willingness, obscures direction, and diminishes the quality of your contribution is not made noble by its quantity. The aim is not withdrawal. The aim is to end unconscious surrender so that generosity may once again be chosen, wholehearted, and useful. A principle becomes a life only through repetition. Therefore, begin each day with 5 decisions. First, name the governing priority. Ask what truly deserves my strength today. Let one essential responsibility or chosen contribution answer. Second, Protect one commitment to renewal. It may be rest, nourishment, movement, focused preparation, necessary care, or quiet recovery. Give it a place. Maintenance left to chance is usually defeated by urgency. Third, pause before every new promise. Do not spend tomorrow's capacity merely to relieve today's discomfort. Review the cost, the purpose, and what acceptance would displace. Fourth, state one necessary boundary. Name what you will decline, defer, narrow, or renegotiate. Speak plainly. A vague limit is an invitation for the old pattern to return. Fifth, choose one useful act of service. Do not preserve strength merely to admire your independence. Spend some of it deliberately on a person, promise, task, or contribution that truly matters. Renewal proves its purpose when it returns you to worthy action. Then, at evening, review without cruelty and without excuse. Where did I act from purpose? Where did fear purchase my yes? What must be restored, repaired, renegotiated, or declined tomorrow? If you failed a genuine duty, correct it. If you surrendered to an inherited expectation, examine it. If your capacity was honestly spent, renew it. Accountability should produce adjustment, not self-condemnation. Keep the 4 categories before you. Honor essential duties. Let chosen service remain generous because it remains free. Give negotiable support, clear terms. Permit no inherited burden to cross another day without examination. This is how the audit becomes conduct instead of insight. Guard your attention. Maintain the body that performs your commitments. Choose a direction before urgency chooses one for you. Speak limits without hostility. Hear disappointment without abandoning judgment. Repair actual failures. Release false charges. Restore what worthy effort consumes. Give from readiness, not from resentment. Put yourself first in the order of responsibility, not because you are more valuable than others, but because you are responsible for the condition from which your conduct proceeds. When self-respect supports service, and service gives self-respect a worthy purpose, the old conflict begins to dissolve. You need no guarantee that every person will approve or every outcome will improve. Your task is identity expressed through practice. Become the disciplined steward, one who renews without escaping, refuses without contempt, accepts without compulsion, and serves without disappearing. Begin today. Name the priority. Protect the renewal. Pause before the promise. Make one rightful boundary decision. Then use the strength it preserves for one deliberate act of service.